A scream cut through the night, jagged and raw, echoing across the fields before sinking into the hollow farmhouse walls. Emily froze at the broken doorway. Her breath hitched as the metallic taste of dread coated her tongue. Michael clutched her sleeve, eyes wide and glassy with tears he refused to let fall. "It's coming from inside," he whispered, his voice trembling. Emily shook her head, whispering back, "No, it's just the wind." But her words felt hollow, eaten by the silence that pressed against them. Then came the dragging sound, slow and wet, something heavy scraping across warped boards. Emily's skin prickled as a whisper rose from the shadows beyond, hoarse, broken, and deliberate. It shaped her name, stretching each syllable as though savoring her fear. Emily slammed the splintered door shut, pressing her back against it, her heart hammering so loud it drowned her thoughts. Michael whispered, "It knew your name." His voice cracked like breaking glass. Emily shook her head, her denial weak, the words barely audible. "No, it was nothing." Yet the farmhouse groaned, the boards flexing beneath their weight as if breathing. Then came a faint sound curling from the corners, a reversed nursery rhyme, broken syllables tumbling backward. It slithered through the air, its cadence unnatural, each note unraveling the lullabies of their childhood into something grotesque. Michael's eyes darted toward the shadows, his lips trembling, but he dared not speak again. Emily's hand slid across the wood, feeling the vibrations of whispers that should not exist. The silence between the fragments was heavier than screams, and the rhyme carried on, like a child speaking in a voice that wasn't their own. Michael's voice broke the silence, small and trembling. "That sounded like a song." Emily forced a laugh, brittle and cracking. "It's the wind." Yet the rhythm was unmistakable, a lullaby twisted in reverse. She recognized fragments of the rhyme their mother once sang, now turned inside out, syllables dragged through shadows. Each backward word pierced the room, slicing memory into terror. Michael pressed his hands to his ears, shaking his head. "Make it stop," he whimpered. Emily crouched beside him, gripping his shoulders tightly, her face pale under the lantern's flicker. "I'll keep you safe," she whispered, though the words rang hollow. The rhyme wound tighter, pressing into their skulls, and Emily realized it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from somewhere within the farmhouse itself, whispering from walls that seemed to lean closer, listening. Far from the farmhouse, Detective Harris sat slouched at his cluttered desk, papers stacked in uneven towers, a half-empty coffee cooling at his elbow. "Another prank," he muttered, scanning reports of screams at the abandoned property. His skepticism felt safe, until the radio on his desk crackled, spitting static that warped into distorted words. A nursery rhyme, but backwards, low and unnatural. The detective's hand froze, cup rattling as it slipped in his grip. His eyes darted to the radio as the backward lullaby bled into the silence, each syllable dripping like venom. He leaned closer, face pale in the glow of the desk lamp, whispering to himself, "That can't be real." Yet the rhyme carried on, faint and deliberate, as if meant only for him. Emily's flashlight beam wavered down the warped hallway, the air thick with dust that swirled at her steps. Each groan of the boards echoed like bones breaking. Her hand shook as the light swept across peeling wallpaper, revealing fragments of childish scribbles faded into decay. Then it caught something sitting upright in the dust, a porcelain doll. Its cracked eyes gleamed under the beam, its painted lips parted. Emily gasped, pulling Michael behind her, but the doll's hollow chest vibrated. A broken rhyme hissed out, words spilling in reverse, syllables distorted and jagged. Michael buried his face against Emily's arm, whimpering. The sound grew louder, mocking, as if the doll carried the voice of something unseen. Emily raised the flashlight higher, her breath sharp and uneven, and the rhyme twisted into her name, whispered backwards. The farmhouse groaned through the night, as if something within shifted restlessly. Emily held Michael close, whispering, "Stay quiet." His small body trembled against her chest, but the sound still found them. It was subtle at first, a faint scratching in the walls, Then came the soft, dragging thud, like heavy steps pacing inside the boards themselves. Michael whimpered, "It's walking in the walls." Emily pressed her hand against the rotting wood, her pulse racing. She could feel vibrations running beneath her skin, something alive crawling inside the house. The rhyme returned, backward and broken, weaving through the cracks like smoke. Emily whispered again, "Don't listen." But Michael's eyes widened, his mouth forming the rhyme's twisted syllables, repeating what he heard as though compelled to speak it. The night deepened, every corner of the farmhouse pulsing with shadows that seemed to breathe. Emily stirred at the sound of whispered words, low and backwards, spilling from Michael's lips as he slept. His voice was not his own, warped and deep, the lullaby unraveling in fragments. She shook him awake, her voice sharp, "Michael, stop." His eyes fluttered open, glassy and distant, as if he hadn't spoken at all. He asked, "Why are you scared?" But his tone was empty, hollow. Emily's heart sank as she realized the whispers had slipped into him, threading through his dreams. She backed away, her mind racing with denial, but every corner of the room carried the faint echo of the rhyme, as though the walls themselves joined his voice. By morning, Emily forced herself to seek help, dragging Michael into the sunlight that felt thin and powerless. She found Detective Harris leaning against his car outside town, his weary eyes narrowing at her urgency. "You won't believe me," she said, clutching Michael's hand. Harris smirked, skeptical. "Ghost stories don't scare me." But when Michael muttered a rhyme in reverse under his breath, Harris froze. The detective's jaw tightened as his disbelief cracked, and he muttered, "That's not possible." Emily begged, "Please, come to the house." Harris hesitated, torn between reason and the dread crawling beneath his skin. Finally, he sighed. "One look. That's all." His voice betrayed the tremor he tried to hide. The farmhouse loomed again by dusk, its broken windows reflecting the last streaks of dying sunlight. Harris stepped inside first, flashlight steady, though his hand betrayed a tremor. Emily followed, dragging Michael close, her whisper sharp, "Don't speak." From the shadows came a low cough, and then a voice that was not theirs. A man stood half hidden in the gloom, a gaunt figure with piercing eyes and tattered clothes. His tone was cryptic. "You shouldn't have brought him here." Emily demanded, "Who are you?" But the man only tilted his head, muttering fragments of rhymes backward as though they were prayers. Harris raised his gun, his disbelief cracking into fear. The stranger smiled faintly, saying, "It already knows his voice." Emily's flashlight beam flickered across the dust as she followed the stranger's gaze. Her breath hitched when she saw a small wooden box lying beneath broken boards. Harris kicked it open, and inside lay a child's toy, a bloodied rattle. Emily recoiled, clutching Michael tighter. The stranger whispered, "Every rhyme calls it closer." Michael's hand twitched toward the toy, as though pulled by invisible threads. Emily yanked him back, heart pounding, shouting, "Don't touch it!" The farmhouse groaned in answer, its walls vibrating with a chorus of backward whispers. Harris muttered, "What the hell happened here?" But no one answered. The rattle rattled on its own, shrill and jagged, the sound crawling into their bones like nails dragging across glass. The stranger's eyes never blinked as he stepped closer. His voice thinned and cracked. "You've brought him where the rhymes can hear." Emily gripped Michael's arm tightly, her knuckles pale. Harris raised his gun, demanding, "Start explaining." The man tilted his head, his lips twitching with words he didn't fully say. "The nursery rhymes in reverse. They are not harmless songs," he rasped. Emily asked, her voice trembling. "Then what are they?" The stranger whispered, "They are keys. Each syllable opens the way further." Michael hid behind his sister, whispering fragments without realizing. The man's gaze snapped to the boy. "And he speaks them so clearly." Harris growled, "Back away." Yet Emily felt the truth already. Michael wasn't repeating nonsense. He was unlocking something meant to stay buried. Emily pulled Michael closer, anger breaking through her fear. "Tell us what you know." The stranger's cracked smile stretched, revealing missing teeth. This house remembers. Children once whispered the rhymes and blood followed. Harris scoffed, though sweat lined his temple. Fairy tales. The stranger's tone sharpened. Your disbelief won't save you. He leaned near Michael, who stared blankly, lips twitching in silent repetition. Emily shoved the man back, shouting, "Stay away from him." Harris gripped her shoulder, muttering, "He's crazy." Yet when the walls trembled, all three froze. A voice seeped out, low and deliberate, a rhyme backward, carried on air that smelled of rust and rot. The stranger whispered, "It listens when he dreams." Harris turned sharply, his voice harsh to mask his unease. "Enough riddles. What's inside these walls?" The stranger's eyes glinted in the flickering light. "Something that never sleeps." Emily whispered, "Why, Michael?" Her voice broke. The stranger replied, "Because the youngest always hear it first." Michael suddenly muttered again, his voice warped, the rhyme spilling backwards with unnatural precision. His eyes rolled slightly, unfocused. Emily shook him, panicked, crying, "Stop it, please stop." Harris cursed, his disbelief splintering. The stranger lifted a hand, as though in reverence, whispering, "It speaks through him now." Emily's stomach twisted, realizing Michael wasn't just repeating. He was channeling something beyond the walls, something ancient, patient, and waiting. The air turned heavy, pressing against their lungs as the whispers filled every corner. Emily staggered back, covering Michael's ears, but his lips kept moving on their own. Harris barked, "I'm ending this," and strode forward, shoving the stranger against the wall. "Tell me what you've done to him." The stranger only laughed, dry and cracked. "I've done nothing. The house chose him." The boards under their feet groaned like a warning, and a faint outline spread across the floor. Small, bloody handprints crawling outward. Emily screamed, "Stop it!" Harris froze as the sound of children's voices, layered and reversed, rose from beneath the boards. The stranger whispered, "It wakes when called." Emily pulled Michael into her arms, trembling as the whispers crescendoed. Harris shouted over the noise, his voice ragged, "How do we stop it?" The stranger's hollow gaze never wavered. "You don't. Once the rhyme is complete, it cannot be silenced." Emily cried, "He's just a child." The man leaned forward, his tone chilling. "That is why it wants him most." Harris pointed his gun at the man's chest, fury burning in his eyes. "If you know more, start talking." The stranger smiled faintly, muttering in reverse under his breath, fragments that twisted the air itself. Michael's voice joined his, clear and steady. Emily screamed, "No," but it was too late. The rhyme was no longer whispered alone. It was sung in unison. The farmhouse was quiet at dawn, but the silence felt heavier than the screams of the night before. Emily sat on the steps, her face pale, clutching Michael's hand as though letting go would mean losing him forever. Harris paced behind her, muttering, "This is madness." The stranger crouched in the corner, his shadow long and skeletal, speaking softly. "This is not the first time. Long ago, children whispered the rhymes and families bled." Emily turned sharply, her voice breaking. "What happened here?" His eyes gleamed with hollow knowing. "The house remembers. It has always remembered. The voices of the children never leave." Michael shifted uneasily, his lips moving faintly, as if humming. Emily grabbed him, crying, "Don't say it." But the boy's eyes glowed with an unsettling vacancy. Inside the farmhouse, the stranger pointed to carvings etched deep into the walls. Names scratched alongside fragmented rhymes written backward. Harris leaned close, reading them aloud, then stopped mid-word as his tongue twisted against the shapes. Emily snapped, "Don't say them." The stranger chuckled, "They bind the living to the dead." Michael stared at one of the names, his lips moving to mirror its rhythm. Emily pulled him away, whispering desperately, "Don't look." The stranger's tone hardened. "Every generation leaves children to the song. This house keeps them." Harris clenched his fists, his skepticism cracking. "You're saying they were sacrifices?" The man's grin widened. No, detective. They were chosen. Later, Emily found an elderly woman in town who still remembered the farmhouse past. Her eyes clouded, her hands shaking, she whispered, "The rhymes aren't songs. They're a summoning." Emily begged, "How do I stop it?" The woman shook her head, tears forming. "You can't. Once the child speaks them, the door is open." Harris stood nearby, arms crossed, but his frown revealed cracks in his disbelief. "What door?" The woman's gaze lifted, haunted. "A door between here and something older, something cruel." Emily held Michael tighter, but his small voice drifted again, backward words spilling from his lips without effort. The woman cried, "It already has him." That evening, back at the farmhouse, Emily confronted the stranger again. Her voice was fierce, though trembling. "You knew this would happen." The man smirked faintly. "I warned you." Harris shoved him against the wall, snarling, "Stop speaking in riddles." The stranger's tone was calm, almost amused. "The child doesn't need me. The house already owns him." Emily shouted, "You lie!" But even as she spoke, Michael's laughter echoed, sharp and unnatural, the sound of a voice not his own. Emily turned in horror to see her brother's eyes flicker black for a heartbeat. Harris stepped back, muttering, "Jesus Christ!" The stranger whispered, "It has begun." Emily staggered back, her breath uneven, as Michael's lips curled into words that were not his own. The rhyme poured smoothly now, no longer broken, every syllable flowing in reverse with unnatural clarity. Harris shouted, "Make him stop," but Emily's pleas were drowned beneath the sound. The walls shook, dust falling from the ceiling, cracks spreading across the wood as if the house itself breathed with the rhythm. The stranger stepped forward, eyes shining. "It's too late, the rhyme is whole." Emily screamed, clutching Michael, "Fight it!" But his eyes were vacant, his voice strong. Harris raised his gun but hesitated, torn between saving the boy and ending the chant. The farmhouse groaned as if welcoming something unseen. Emily clutched Michael as the whispers grew louder, crawling through the walls like veins of sound. Harris grabbed her arm, his voice urgent. "We can't stay here. This place is alive." Emily shook her head, eyes wide. "It wants him. If we run, it follows." The stranger stood calmly, his voice low and deliberate. "The rhyme is no longer just his. The house knows his name." Michael's small body shook as though he were fighting an unseen hand, his lips moving in resistance. Emily whispered fiercely, "Fight it, Michael, please." Harris raised his gun again, jaw tight. "Tell me what ends this, or you die right here." The stranger's hollow gaze lingered on Emily. "You end it with blood, but not his." Emily's voice cracked, her desperation spilling out. "Whose blood?" The stranger's expression twisted into something cruel. "The one who betrays you." Harris snapped, "Enough riddles." But his voice shook with unease. Michael whimpered, tugging at Emily's sleeve, whispering in backward fragments. Emily pressed her forehead to his, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Don't listen, don't let it in." Harris muttered, "We can burn this place down." The stranger chuckled darkly. "The house won't burn. It has burned before." The floor groaned, splitting as a jagged crack spread across the boards, dust spiraling upward. Emily gasped as shadows slithered from the opening, twisting into shapes of children, their whispers layering in eerie harmony. Harris fired a shot into the darkness, the echo thunderous, but the shadows only rippled like water. Michael gasped, whispering the rhyme louder, his voice distorted. Emily screamed, shaking him, "Stop! You're stronger than it." For a fleeting second, Michael's eyes focused, tears glistening. "I don't want to," he whimpered. The stranger's voice cut through the chaos. "But it wants you." Harris pulled Emily toward the door, yelling, "We're leaving now." But the shadows surged, sealing the exit with blackness thicker than stone. Emily turned, desperation turning into fury. "You said blood ends this? Whose?" The stranger whispered, "The betrayer's blood binds the door shut." Harris stared, realization dawning with horror. The room shook violently, lanterns swinging wildly as the shadows closed in. Emily turned to Harris, voice sharp. "He means you," Harris growled. "That's insane." The stranger's laughter was hoarse. "The betrayer always wears a badge of trust." Harris' face twisted, his grip on the gun faltering as doubt spread. Emily cried, "If it's true, then your life can save him." Harris shouted back, "I've fought to protect people my whole damn life." The whispers rose louder, dozens of voices speaking backward in unison. Michael's chant grew strong again, his eyes glazed. Emily screamed, "Do something." Harris glanced between them, torn, sweat dripping from his brow as the walls seemed to close in. The farmhouse wailed as if alive, boards splitting, dust pouring from the ceiling. Harris dropped his gun, his voice breaking. "If this ends it, then let it be me." Emily gasped, reaching for him. "No, there has to be another way." Harris shook his head, forcing a grim smile. "Protect the boy? That's all that matters." The stranger stepped forward, voice low and certain. "Blood seals what words have opened." Without hesitation, Harris drew a knife from his belt, pressing it to his palm. Emily screamed, "Stop!" But before she could reach him, he slashed deep, his blood spilling onto the cracked boards. The shadows writhed, shrieking, pulling inward toward the stain. Michael collapsed into Emily's arms, silent at last. The farmhouse trembled as Harris' blood soaked the boards, shadows writhing and retreating. But the silence that followed was worse. Emily clutched Michael's limp body, her tears streaking dirt down her cheeks. "Please wake up," she begged. Suddenly, Michael's eyes opened, but they were black as pitch. His voice, layered with countless others, spoke in a low, reversed chant. Emily recoiled, gasping, "No, not you too." The stranger whispered with grim satisfaction, "The house has taken root in him." Harris stumbled back, his bleeding hand pressed against his chest, horror filling his eyes. Emily shouted, "Fight it, Michael!" But his voice only grew stronger, shaking the farmhouse as if each word was a hammer against the walls. Michael rose to his feet without control, his small body moving with unnatural precision, steps echoing louder than his weight should allow. Emily cried, "Stop this!" reaching for him, but he pushed her away with a strength not his own, sending her crashing against the wall. Harris staggered forward, raising his gun despite his wounds, yelling, "Let the boy go!" Michael's lips moved faster, the rhyme unraveling perfectly in reverse, each syllable dripping with venomous intent. The stranger whispered, "The ritual nears completion." Emily struggled up, her eyes burning with fury. "I won't lose him." She grabbed Harris's arm, forcing him to lower his weapon. "Not like this." Shadows swirled, the house moaning as if alive. Emily stepped forward, her voice trembling but fierce. "Michael, it's me. You're stronger than this." For a heartbeat, his eyes flickered, but the chant resumed, louder and more furious. Harris growled, "He's gone," but Emily shouted, "No, he's still here." She wrapped her arms around Michael, ignoring the bruising force that pushed against her. "I won't let you take him." Her words clashed with the chant until the air itself seemed to tear. The stranger's smile widened. "Love won't silence it." Yet Emily pressed her forehead against Michael's, whispering over and over, "You're mine, not theirs." His body convulsed, the chant breaking into jagged fragments, the shadows shrieking in unison. The house roared, dust pouring from the ceiling as floorboards cracked. Harris fired into the shadows, each bullet swallowed whole. Emily screamed, "It's breaking free!" The stranger whispered, almost reverently, "The gate is opening." Michael screamed suddenly, a sound not his own, a chorus of children's cries spilling from his throat. Emily clutched him tighter, screaming over the sound, "You're stronger than them, fight!" Harris stumbled toward them, bleeding heavily, shouting, "If he doesn't stop, it'll consume everything." Emily shook Michael desperately. "Remember me. Remember us." For a moment, his eyes cleared, flickering back to brown, but the shadows surged forward, shrieking with rage. Emily fell to her knees, pulling Michael into her arms as the chant tore through the house. Harris shouted, his voice raw. "If this continues, we all die here." The stranger stepped forward, his grin cruel. "Then, let it take you." Emily screamed back, "No!" Her voice shattered the rhythm, breaking through Michael's chant. His small hands gripped her arms tightly, as tears streamed down his face. "I'm scared," he whispered at last, his real voice returning. Emily cried, "I've got you." The shadows shrieked and recoiled violently, the farmhouse trembling as though rejecting its prize. Harris collapsed, clutching his wound, as silence pressed against them. For a moment, it seemed they had won, until the whisper returned, faint but deliberate, echoing Michael's name. The farmhouse groaned in exhaustion, as if it had taken a breath and was now waiting to exhale. Emily dragged Michael outside, his head against her shoulder, his eyes glassy but alive. Harris stumbled after them, blood staining his shirt, his breathing ragged. "Don't stop," he muttered, though each word shook. The farmhouse stood behind them, silent now, its broken windows reflecting faint starlight. Emily whispered, "It's over." But even as she said it, the air carried a faint hum, like a lullaby hidden within the wind. Michael stirred, his lips twitching as if tempted to sing. Emily held him tighter, her voice breaking. "Not again. Please, not again." They reached the edge of the field, the tall grass whispering against their legs. Harris leaned heavily on Emily, his voice strained. "Don't look back." But Emily turned, her eyes locking onto the farmhouse one last time. For a moment it looked smaller, broken, just a ruin. Then, faintly, one of the upstairs windows glowed with dim light, flickering like a candle. Emily froze, her grip on Michael tightening. Harris spat blood into the grass, muttering, "That's not possible." Michael whimpered softly, his voice carrying fragments of the reversed rhyme again. Emily shook him, desperate. "No, don't say it." His eyes filled with tears, but the words still slipped out, soft and steady. The stranger appeared behind them without sound, his gaunt figure cutting through the grass like a shadow. Emily spun around, rage in her voice. "What did you do to him?" The man's hollow eyes gleamed. "I warned you. Once spoken, the words can never be taken back." Harris raised his gun weakly, his voice raw. "Stay away from them." The stranger only tilted his head, his expression unreadable. "You think you've survived, but survival is not freedom." Emily shouted, "Leave us alone." But the man's lips moved silently, his words forming shapes in the air, though no sound carried. Michael whimpered, clutching his sister. The stranger smiled faintly, then stepped back into the shadows, vanishing as if he'd never been there. Emily and Harris staggered toward town, the night endless around them. Michael's small voice broke the silence, whispering, "I can still hear them." Emily pressed her lips to his forehead, trembling. "Don't listen, baby, don't listen." Harris coughed, his body failing, yet his eyes burned with grim clarity. "If he hears them, it means it's not done." Emily's steps faltered, but she forced herself forward. "Then we'll never let them win." The boy's whisper grew louder, fragments of the rhyme slipping free as tears slid down his cheeks. Emily's voice cracked, "I'll keep you safe, even if I have to fight forever." But in her heart, she feared the truth. The rhyme had already taken root too deep. They finally reached the first street lamp on the edge of town, its glow casting a fragile circle of safety. Emily collapsed to her knees, clutching Michael close. Harris leaned against the post, blood dripping down his arm, his voice hoarse. "It's over." Emily shook her head, her voice breaking. "No, it isn't." Michael stirred, his lips moving once more, whispering the rhyme backwards, slow and deliberate. The words slithered into the night, wrapping around them like chains. Emily's face crumpled as tears fell freely. Harris's eyes widened, the realization hitting him like a blow. The light above them flickered once, twice, then died, plunging them back into darkness as Michael's whisper carried on.